Module 3 continues with Part C, Sending and Viewing Events. In this video, a query will be created around the OpenNMS DB events tables that may be helpful in troubleshooting. An undefined event will be generated and the results examined. The undefined event will be defined, related events generated, and the results examined. That's all coming up in this video. Two terminals will be used to work with the OpenNMS database. PSQL will operate in one, and an SQL file will be edited in another. Both windows should operate from the same subdirectory, in this case /var/ephemera. In the PSQL terminal, access PSQL using the command shown. In the SQL file terminal, edit and save the file pg.sql. Back in the PSQL terminal, \? Runs through a quick help of PSQL commands. The first command of interest is \coninfo, which provides connection information. Any command started with \! followed by a Linux command will execute that Linux command from within PSQL. This can be used to verify the present working directory or files therein. Sometimes, if the terminal is cluttered, the \! clear command helps. Dump the contents of the events table with the SQL statement select * from events. This dump can get long. Hit the spacebar to page through the results. Normally, the search is limited to a time period, source, event type, and so on. Generally, in this video, the search is for the last event added. The command to do this is select * from events, order by event ID descending, limit 1, which selects all rows from the events table, ordering them in descending order by event ID and limiting the return to one row, which would be the last event added. The results can make it difficult to determine the value of each column. This can be helped by turning expansion on. Use \x on to do this. Re-enter the command and the output becomes clearer. Columns are on the left and column values are on the right. Switch to the editing terminal and enter the commands just executed in the PSQL terminal. There is a preference for separating the SQL into lines. Return to the PSQL window and execute the contents of pg.sql with \i pg.sql. The results should match those of the command executed directly in PSQL. The display has two minor inconveniences. All the columns are displayed, and some values, because of spacing, are spread across many lines. The columns of interest are those that can be generated by send-event.pl. That would be UEI, service, node ID, interface, description, log message, severity, and parameters. This table provides a link between the send-event.pl options and the corresponding OpenNMS tables and columns. Elements in parentheses indicate that a foreign key will be used to access data. There are a few other columns of interest: event ID and the time the event was received. In the editing terminal, the SQL has been modified to retrieve only the columns of interest. The parameters will be added shortly. The result of the query are clear. The results are limited to fields of interest. To add more clarity, remove extraneous spaces, which are defined as two or more spaces in the event description and log message columns. The previous SQL statements have been modified to list each selected column on a selected line and to search through the event description and event log message for two or more spaces and replace those occurrences with a single space. regex_replace is a common SQL statement in PostgreSQL. More information can be found on the web. Execute the script in the PSQL terminal and note how compact the results appear. It is time to link the service ID with the service name. The service ID of the service associated with the event is stored in the Events table. To retrieve the service name is going to require joining information between the two tables, the Events table and the Service table. This joining is done through the service ID, which is in both tables, and what is retrieved is the service name in the Service table. Here is the SQL in the editing terminal. The points are: the service name is retrieved instead of the event's service ID. This is done with a left join between the service table and the events table using the service ID. Left join is described on the internet. Execute pg.sql inside the PSQL terminal. In this case, there is not a service associated with the last event. However, there is a service associated with the event whose event ID is 7. Add the line where event ID equals 7 to the query for test purposes only. View the result. A service name, OpenNMS-JVM, is reported. The inclusion of parameters is similar to that of service name. In this case, the event ID stored in the event parameters table is tied to the event ID in the events table, and the name and value are extracted from the event parameters table. There is one complication. There may be more than one row, name/value pair, in event parameters associated with an event ID. That difficulty is handled in the manner shown by using a with clause. Think of this with clause as generating two tables. The first table, labeled E, is created with the same select as has been developed to this point. The second table, labeled P, is a new select that joins the event parameters and E tables on the event ID of the E table. The name value values retrieved will be displayed as name equal value. And because multiple values can be retrieved, the results will be aggregated in an array. The array elements will be separated with a comma. With and array ag are described on the internet. Execute the query in the PSQL terminal. Note how the param value is displayed. This is sufficient for tutorial purposes. To verify that an event type uei.tutorial.event/simple is not yet in OpenNMS, perform two steps. Check for the event name in OpenNMS Home etc events *.xml and check for the event name in Carafe. This opens SSH and executes the command show-event-config against the event name. Both checks should come up empty. As a sanity check, verify the last event. This is not necessary. For speed, the following tasks are performed from the command line. Use send-event.pl to send the event to OpenNMS. Execute PSQL pg.sql to view the last event. The event just sent is in the DB with the event ID 62. Refresh the Event List All web page and Event 62 should be there. Click on the Event ID 62 in the left column to see clearer information. Return to the Editing Terminal window. The event OpenNMS used to process the unknown event uei.tutorial.event/simple can be found in the file OpenNMS_home/etsy/events.catch-all.events.xml and is named uei.openNMS/org/default/event. Comparing how uei.tutorial.event/simple was interpreted using uei.openNMS/org/default/event, follow the arrows for description, log message, and severity. Node and interface were left blank on the send-event.pl command line. The event ID and time were set by OpenNMS. The only attribute used by OpenNMS was the UEI, uei.tutorial.event/simple. To define uei.tutorial.event/simple in OpenNMS, create a file Tutorial.events.xml in OpenNMS_home/etc/events with contents as depicted on the screen. Like the other XML files in this subdirectory, the file's ownership is OpenNMS:OpenNMS, and the file's permissions are 664. Edit the OpenNMS_home etc eventconf.xml file and add the event file element for Tutorial.events.xml as depicted on the screen. Run the command send-event.pl uei.openNMS.org/internal/reload daemon config -p, and then in single quotes daemon name event d. This will tell OpenNMS to reread and process changes or additions to the event configuration files. Next, run the carav command OpenNMS show-event-config for the event just created. The result should match the event just created in the Tutorial.events.xml file. Using the command send-event.pl, resend the uei.tutorial.event/simple event. Look for the last event in the OpenNMS database. The description, log message, and severity should match those defined in the uei.tutorial.event/simple definition. The event is already in the OpenNMS All Events list. Click on the event ID and open the event-specific web page. Resend the event, but add a parameter of var1 equal value1. Leave the equal sign out of the command. Check the results in the database. Note the parm_value at the bottom. Check the events list. A refresh may be necessary. The parameter will display. Click on the event ID as before. And that's it. Up next, a demonstration of what happens when certain send event arguments are changed and how a change in the log message destination affects what users see.